recorded by the host.
Can we please have a warm hand of welcome for Robin?
Hi.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. Hello. And thank you, Jacques and Edward, for inviting me to read this evening. We met up in person at the bookshop a couple of months ago, and to read the Majaji anthology poems. And it's lovely to be back. You know, I really feel at home amongst all you lovely South African people. I've got a lot of poetry with me. I've got my two collections, as Jacques mentioned, A Lioness at My Heels and Messages from the Bees, and also a new collection, An Obeisance to Frogs, which hopefully will be coming out quite soon. Colleen said it's being laid out, so that sounds rather hopeful. I've also brought some poems from our poetry critique group in Amsterdam. I thought you might be interested. And we've published a little anthology because we've been going for a long time, 20 years, which I think is quite a record. And all the poems in the anthology were written during lockdown. And I'd like to tell you a little bit about our amazing group and read a couple of poems from that, but I'm going to do that at the end. I start with my very first book, A Lioness at My Heels, and this was published in 2011. And they seem to reflect a period that seems really, really so long ago. I think my move from South Africa to Holland really brought up incredibly strong memories of family and landscape, and also quite a lot of nostalgia. And then moving on to Messages from the Bees and the Frog collection, I think I've become, in a sense, more grounded, if that's the right word. But I can say that my poetry really reflects the landscape, especially of South Africa, and the pull between Europe and South Africa. I've got a bit of a cold and I'm slightly hoarse, but I think you can hear me. I'm going to first of all introduce you to my South African family. It's a prose poem and it's titled Family. My grandfather had a secret longing for fish, silver scales and a tail instead of legs. He said he gaffed a mermaid, pulled barnacles from her teeth. Her breath smelt of red bait. My grandmother would sourly sit knitting. The sharp click of her needles would stitch a bolero for the naked mermaid. My grandfather always told so many stories. My father lived in a wooden shack on a wild shore amongst the baboons, rock rabbits, and a leopard. He caught fish and ran water from the high waterfall into the valley. His bath was hot at midday, cold in the morning. His evenings were candlelit, and he noticed that when he had drunk brandy, a slinky lynx would wink at him through the window. My brother fell in love with the koi fish. She ate from his hand, her soft mouth nuzzling his fingers, her cold body touching his outstretched hands. He sat for hours watching her under the stars, darting here and there. She was never far from him. Now she has spawned a whole school of koi, and he has built a bigger pond for her, larger than his house. The pool is growing. My brother is poor, but he is happy. Meditation while waiting for something unpleasant. If my mind wanders, it's to that stone farmhouse beside the winding dust road, the ostriches, a few palms, a creaky bridge over a dried up stream. What is the point of remembering that curve of road, that hamlet, without one touch of green? A passing bucky churns up a barrow of dust, then the limitless silence. And when it happens, like a pigeon crazed for home, I'm racing back. Dark clouds pass, the light, dry road opens. And this last poem from this little collection was actually one of the first poems that I wrote, and it was written in a workshop in the UK, also a long time ago. Home. Teacups piled to the edge of the draining board like wildebeest in desperate rows, jumping the dishwater at its narrowest point. Newly washed shirts dry in the sun, spread out like giant termites. Yesterday's ironing blooms, a flowering cactus, after a moist day's heat. Cool beds in the morning, unmade and unruly. White horses on sea coufflet. Africa follows me around the house, a lioness at my heels. And here she is. I don't know if you can see her, but I think she's really beautiful. Made out of fynbos. I think it's a beautiful illustration. I'm going to read some poems from my second collection, Messages from the Bees. And these incorporate wildlife poems, also with poems about grief and loss, which I wrote after losing my husband to cancer. I'm going to start off with a poem called Caracal. I'd walked there for years, head down and checking for catboard tracks. Now at last alive as I stand and watch you move. Cat body hidden by bush, head facing the dunes, unaware, red tail brushing the sand, forward, backward, forward, backward. It gives you away, late afternoon light, catching rust on an open patch. The minutes passing, until suddenly you turn tufted ears and surprised, draw back tense lips, your wild eyes for 1 second penetrating mine, before you leap and turn and vanish in a flash. We have weekend guests at the house and a past lover, not seen in decades. We sidestep with care, talk small, and brush sand over all our tracks. And the title poem of this collection, Messages from the Bees. Every sound has a story, regular breath, a slow heartbeat, the bubbling of morning porridge, leaves that in a trembling breeze drift and rustle on frozen ground, rainwater laughing down the gutters after a sudden storm has drifted further on. In an African garden, I found a deep hole where you can hear the humming of the earth, making us thrill in these bodies where we find ourselves. Your breath echoing in my ear and carrying into me messages from the bees. And now I'm going to read you a couple of poems about grief and loss. I've tried to not make them too sad, starting with grieving with elephants. As if gates have opened, friends flood in with flowers and fruit, whispering in the hot room. I'd rather the plain elephants and a simple landscape, a quiet sorrow in a world rich with nothing. They would surround me gently, reach out with swaying trunks, their sighs embodying sorrow as they stand and dust themselves, their low rumblings an orison. Moving off, their powdered ears would flap like the wings of seraphim. Dream vision of a temple union. Sleeping with Morpheus. Side by side, we found ourselves in our unspeakable world. The curve of a chair draped with your nightshirt, your bedside table filled with opiates. The room, a small cave, tightly holding your pain. Heavy curtains hold an inner garden, the rise and fall of each other's dreams. The high tree outside drenched with night. Our touching limbs have lulled the demons. Dream messenger Morpheus has scattered his poppy seeds, while your sleeping face and frail winged back are all that is. And a last poem from this collection. The home bringing. We wondered, months later, whether we'd done right by him by not moving him up through a hole in the wall of the house, so he wouldn't remember the way back. Not taking the zigzag path to the burial site, throwing sharp thorns on the way so that he wouldn't become a wandering ghost. None of this we had done. No ash smeared on the windows, the photographs not turned. How would he have received a new body to enable him to move around his world? Left behind, we didn't forget the world's a light and living place. Knew he'd be happy to lightfoot the journey. So we feasted and sang, remembering the way the passage of time had worked on him, and declared our faith in the world of the perishable. The great wound staining us all, the slain ox bringing him back home to his family. And we pressed our lips into the earth, weighed our voices with silence, grasped the past's translucent dust. I'm really excited about my new collection, An Obeisance to Frogs. And it features poems about the South African natural world, which I've been reading quite a bit about the natural world of South Africa, but also for the first time, I've been writing poems about Europe, and I've included poems written about Tuscany, about Paris, Amsterdam. And I've got the manuscript here, and I'm going to read a couple of poems from it. I'm going to start with the swallows. A bone dry summer showing the shine of bleached stone, ostrich heads down, great bird bundles, black and grey, ships on the horizon, only the sound of the wind and the purr of ocean when the breeze turned my way. I sensed it coming, thunder, then a few drops, slowly descending the Overberg onto the plains. And by the end of afternoon, rain, soft and delicate, as if forgotten how to fall, and a flight of swallows flying suddenly, fast as bullets over the veldt, darting, swooping, chirping, a feeding frenzy as tiny insects rose up in the damp. And then, as if knowing that the earth had opened, the rain beat down, the fragrance of bush and earth, damp bark and wet grass, the swallows gone. And the title poem, An Obeisance to Frogs. It's that time of the year, he says, as side by side we walk in the warmth of a spring evening, the frogs in a nearby pond clustered in their choir, their song a mantra to the living, as if all that is not needed has gone, and from this a bold new sound has been born. My animist heart walks with the gods who watch and wait, like the frogs, shaping themselves from mud and gold as they hop and slither, jewel eyes that watch the world. Snake. As lethal as love, hooded gold, it stood up and glittered in the half dark, forked tongue flickering, our musk encroaching. We were the punji, the snake, a swaying reed of rancor. I had called in a local, thought the vanishing tail burrowed in an old rug was harmless, a solitary mole snake keeping house in my garage, not the spitting sleek silk of a Cape cobra, potent as a king, our terror, now too dense to breathe. Over in seconds, crushed and dislocated, the terrible eye still flickering, my heart a heavy hammer. And now I'm going to move away from South Africa and snakes and frogs and all kinds of creepy, crawly things, and take you to Tuscany, where I went for a most gorgeous, beautiful holiday. And this first poem in part 2 is called Cicadas. The cicadas in the trees above have been making that sharp singing sound all day, starting and stopping, taking a rest, and then an explosion of noise, as if trying to drown our voices in the kitchen. And it has just occurred to me, standing at the window, washing the breakfast cups, that their lives depend on their singing, unseen but constant, and that this is the heart's greatest project. Learning how to hold on, to keep on trying, to make something of the bright new surface of each day, but at the same time recognize and cherish the great scar of demise. To live with desire for both, to know their names, And as the cicadas sing out an endless call in the heat of summer, and when the damp cold winds blow, return underground to sip sap from the roots of trees. Turning point. At their most vulnerable, open and naked to the world on this day in January. Beeches and oaks, pines at the top of the hill, their quiet meeting with a loaded sky. Do we reach a point when we can no longer? A spine, fragile and weak, waiting for the season to turn, we glimpse the limping sun and look beyond. I remember childhood days when we dived into mountain pools, reached the muddy bottom, and turned our bodies upward, weightless arms unfurled, swimming from the bottom of the world to light. And I've got a poem about an old tree that I can actually see out of my window. It's still light here. And it's really the perfect tree to climb. Chestnut in winter. Niet vallen, kyk uit. 5 small children high in the branches, laughing, shouting. Their thin bodies climb and whirl. Concentration on their faces, intent, without fear. Their games seem to have some reason. Monstrous battles, secret betrayals in the forest, brutal deaths. And when they return to the classroom, their drawings will be of swords and explosions. The old tree is crumbling under the attack of small feet and hands, thick-waisted, split down the middle. I spent quite a lot of time in Amsterdam, and I think it's a lovely, beautiful place. I've got a prose poem called A Street in Amsterdam. It's part 3, and part 3 is, I think, 3 or 4 love poems. I think you can consider this a love poem. A street in Amsterdam. A young waiter with tied back hair has stepped out of the Italian pizza joint and is pointing out an attraction to a tourist. Later in the same street, a young woman in a ball gown walks in the rain. A waiter and a streetwalker. The woman drops her stroller in front of the pizza joint, and stooping to pick it up, she catches sight of the waiter smoking a cigarette. The woman and waiter twirl for a moment on the wet pavement. The sudden encounter has caused a resonance, their hearts to beat faster. The pitter-patter of rain dances with the warmth of their bodies. The light of the street lantern turns golden, turns red. I don't know if you've been to the Rodin Museum in Paris, but I really would recommend it. The sculptures are so beautiful. This is another love poem, and it's called Embrace. Rodin traveled to Carrara to find a block of veinless marble to carve his kiss. Smoothness worked into skin, folded into night. The embrace, a doorway to elation. bones, muscles, and nerves. The clay shrunk once during firing. This time, his hand not quite on her thigh. The spiral composition of a forbidden love, sinners drifting in the wind, his mouth set on hers. Bodies entwined. And the tiny replicas on the panel, Paola and Francesca, kiss at the gates of hell. I've got a fun, silly poem for you. It's called The Wife of My Ex. It's also supposed to fit into the love poetry. This is the house of the wife of my ex-lover. She lives on a drifting island. From her, I borrow novels. Nothing is mine. My ex is the sort of man who wouldn't hurt a fly. She has a thwarter. Love comes in waves like the ocean, a sickness which grows. She has no bandages. A raw voice, she is everywhere. With him, she plays musical chairs. He is glad not to be left out. I am the seat of elimination. I know she does not like me to play. And a last little poem in this new collection. A child plays. A little girl plays, intent, loose spine and silky limbs, sleek and wild, filled with gladness. Is this what Rousseau meant? No sin nature, happiness, an inside job. Little body lit up, shaking with pleasure. The world just that moment, hung in her game like a heart. I've got the poetry group's anthology here in front of me. And all the poems in this little anthology were written during lockdown. And all of them are written by the poems themselves. In our poetry group, we critique our own poems and we don't read anyone else's poems. So yeah, it really is a lovely group. And I'd like to just read at the back a little bit of the history of the group. We were born in a tiny little Persian tea house in Amsterdam's Jordan. And what followed was 20 years of poetry, from the Mezrab with small little tables filled with very interesting personalities, to the English bookshop with tea and scones, then to the American Book Center, then to Waterstones, and then Seltimer. And now we're meeting on Zoom. But I really do hope we're going to get back to these lovely in-person meetings. And you might ask why we've been critiquing our poetry in so many different locations. But I guess 20 years, lots happens. And first of all, the Mezrab moved, and then the English bookshop closed down. And yeah, it seems like we've been all over the place. But it really was really lovely. And we used to sit at a big table and read our poetry and comment and critique and have lots and lots of fun. And people in the bookstore used to come in and they were really fascinated and they used to listen. It really was a really lovely atmosphere. And anyway, to celebrate our 20 years, we've brought out for the first time this little anthology. And I'd like to read you a poem by Donald Gardner, who's also a very well-known translator, and besides that, also a good poet. This poem is called One Moment. At the heart of Camus' book, at the turn where the worst, the body count, the dread, takes a turn for the worse, somewhere around the middle of his tale of a long, long pestilence, there's a moment of timelessness, of joy gushing down or welling up. Which way joy? It is a moment snatched from life, unaccountable, when the grey endlessness of everything is lifted like a damp towel from the face of a fallen boxer. And we escape the estrangement of the supermarket aisles, where the unmasked mingle with the masked in bad-tempered communication. I've got a poem from his partner, Celise Roche, and they spend a lot of time in Ireland. I find this quite a difficult poem to read, actually, because it has no punctuation, no commas or full stops. But I think it's a lovely poem, and it's obviously set in Ireland, and it's called Nowadays. Spring at full throttle, pigeons like plump cushions crash softly about the wood, and pheasants make neighborly inquiries of each other along the fence, their voices rusty, right-angled. Today I heard the cuckoo call at intervals across the bog, sound transparent as a ghost, faint and far away like a small triumph. From this moment, the swift advance of another year will be relentless. Disquieting to be content with so little nowadays. The steady red of tomato, the brave racket of crows makes my day. And my last poem is by Kate Foley. I have a feeling that she might be there somewhere listening. And she read with me at the McGregor Poetry Festival quite a few years ago. And I know that Jacques really enjoyed her poetry and really appreciated her work. And she's the oldest member of our group. And I think she's publishing her 10th collection. I've kind of lost count, but it's somewhere around there. Yeah, she's nodding, 10th collection. And it's really wonderful to have such an experienced poet in our group. So Jacques, especially for you, perhaps. Now that silence is trickling in faster than sound, and the belly laugh of the planet has softened to a tentative chuckle, we hear, with the clarity of a small chink of light under the bedroom door, the sound of our dying. Tribe by tribe, species by species, leaf by leaf, two-legged, 4 or 8, winged or finned, we drop into the chasm of a time we'll never know. May the loops and bends of our buried woodland paths whisper a prayer to the smallest molecule that may survive. Sorry, we blew it. Please do it better next time. And with that, I'm going to end my reading. I hope you enjoyed the poems.
Robin, that was absolutely wonderful. Can we please have a round of applause? Can we can you unmute yourselves and have a round of applause?
Lovely, Robin. That was wonderful.
Thank you. Lovely to see all your faces.
Yes.
Hi, Margaret.
Hi, hello.
And I want to say hello to Kate. It's wonderful to have you in the room and to hear one of your poems as well. Now, I'm not the best qualified person to see hands in the room, but it's it's what we usually do now. We have a question and answer session. I wonder if yeah, okay. Barbara.
I'm sorry. Hi, Jacques. It's Lisa.
Lisa.
How are you? I'm very well. I made it for the
Oh.
last 15 minutes or so. Hello, everyone. I'm going to put my video on. I was meant to be the host tonight, but unfortunately, I had load shedding just until about 7:45. So Jacques very kindly stepped in for me. But I caught most of it, well, a good chunk of it, Robin, and I'm very happy to be here. So what we'll do now is we'll take some questions from the floor, if you're okay with that.
Yeah,
And then
good,
we'll have a short,
good.
then we'll have a short break, and then we'll open the mic. So if you can just raise your hands, I will kind of try and navigate the questions and answers. If anyone has some questions for Robin.
Where is the reactions?
Okay, great. We'll start with Ed.
Hey Lisa, hi.
Hi, Edward. Hi, how are you?
I'm well, yourself, Robin. I'm so glad. Hey, I'm so glad that this reading came to pass. What is happening, rather, because yeah, it was 6 months ago, or I don't know. It was a while ago, and very exciting prospects. So I am waffling, but I wanted to say I loved the very finely observed and very direct and unpretentious language that you use in your poems. And I'm fascinated by the way that you relate the natural world, your observations of the natural world to the inner world, to memory, to the imagination. So I really enjoyed that side of your writing very much. And I think that the new collection, what you read, they're very strong poems. So yeah, a privilege to hear those. Especially the relationship poems. I don't know if you want to say more about those, or yeah, if this is a new, I don't know the other collections very well. So is this?
Are you referring to the relationship with nature or personal relationships?
Personal relationships. I mean, the relationship with nature. Perhaps someone else has a question there. Yeah, I'm just wondering if you wanted to say more about the personal relations, because it's the same finely observed. Yeah. Well,
I think you know, Messages from the Bees, the poems of grief and loss are probably the most personal. And then in all three collections, there are poems about love, which is obviously, you know, one of the most important experiences in our lives. And also in the new collection, there's a very long poem at the back about a relationship, and it's seen through, the narrative is seen through the eyes and ears of Kagan, who is a bushman.
mm-hmm.
So it's a very long poem, and it tells about a very personal relationship. So yeah,
Sounds exciting.
I didn't read any of that, but I mean there is a lot of you know, personal love story in all three collections.
Thank you. I'm looking forward enormously to catching up.
I hope to be at the Poetry Festival. I see there's a
Yes.
date. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Right. Thank you, Ed. Jacques?
Oh, now I'm struggling to.
Yes.
No. Can you
Yes.
hear me now?
Yes. Good to go.
Oh, that's wonderful. Okay. I'm not sure I can articulate my question, but it goes something like this. I'm fascinated by this idea that the survival of the cicada depends on its singing, and I felt that you were saying that was true for us as well. So my question has something to do with that, and something to do with the poem that you wrote about the death of someone. And at the start of the poem, it felt as if you were taking on the responsibility that that this person would not find their way back, wouldn't wander. But by the end of the poem, it felt as if it had switched, as if that was that the work was exactly internalizing them and mourning them and celebrating them in that way. So my question has something to do with those two things. I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, well, the homebringing, that poem about, I was, it first started off, I was trying to compare a burial in Europe and in Holland, and compare it to an African burial.
Right.
And I just thought maybe the African way of burying their dead was just somehow has so much more significance than our burials, in Europe are pretty, whitewashed, and we try and make them as pretty as possible. So that was basically, the thought behind it, and also, well, if you can call it the inspiration. But I quickly looked up at the way Africans do burials, and then thought, sounds like a good idea.
But by the end of it, I mean, it's such a lovely poem. By the end of it, it feels as if you have found a ritual, sort of a more internal ritual, perhaps, but a ritual nevertheless of bringing the person back in a way. Would you agree?
Yes, definitely, most definitely. Thanks, Jacques. That's
Lovely.
yeah, you've explained it beautifully.
Oh dear, it remains mysterious. Don't worry. I can't explain away the mystery.
Well, you hit the nail on the head. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, Margaret, and then I think we can perhaps break for a short while.
Yeah, okay. No, well, I won't speak long because you actually, Robin, you've virtually answered what I wanted to ask you. And it is because Patricia Schonstein's, I've just got an email from her about the Poetry Festival in McGregor. And I was thinking that was the last time I saw you. Was at the Poetry Festival.
Exactly.
And I was hoping that we could both be there this time. I think the last time I was too ill to go to, last year. And if my daughter will look after me and take me there and sort out everything, then I'll be there too. So
well, I hope lots of others will be there as well who are watching this evening. Yeah.
Okay, great. There's one more from Charles.
Hello, Robin.
Hi, Charles.
I really loved your reading. It seemed to me that nature was never far sort of from the poems. I mean, it was there or stated all the time. And it sort of occurred to me that I've been a little while in Holland, not much, but there didn't really seem to be that much nature there. Is this maybe a sort of looking back to what I've lost, or
Well, exactly. I mean, they were sort of born out of homesickness, I think. Yeah.
yes, okay,
Yeah, definitely.
right.
Yeah, well,
And
especially in the first collection, you know, the poems about home and yeah, and the
so,
lioness. Yeah, they're definitely born out of homesickness. Yeah, that's for sure.
so yeah, and it also appeared sort of almost miraculous that that you could find a group in Holland that was basically writing English poetry 20 years ago. I mean, was that?
Well,
were
they sort of found me. They
Oh,
sort of found me.
okay.
We were a group of fiction and poetry, and then this woman. I was a really shy little girl then, and they said, Robin, you do the poetry group. So that's how it started.
Sure.
And people just came and went, and they're all expatriates. So, and they just all blossomed, and just the most amazing, interesting people have been and come in the group. So yeah, yeah,
Okay.
it's lovely to have a critique group. I would highly recommend it. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
I think Barbara has a question for you, Robin.
Yes. Hello, Robin. It's Barbara. I don't think.
Hi, Barbara.
Hi.
I've seen you on Zoom. Yeah.
I just wanted to say how powerfully I resonated with the energy of your poems, and the love of observation of very small, fine detail in nature, and then marrying it with a bigger picture. I just found your poems very powerful and lovely. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Barbara. Thank you. It was, I really enjoyed reading.
All right, let me just check if there's anything in the comments. I think it's just a lot of gratitude for sharing. From Cindy Swa, hi Cindy, and from Felilani Eke, and from Tony. But I think we could perhaps break for about 5 minutes, maybe come back at 8:43, yeah, and then we'll open the mic. Is that okay? Cool. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And I've got 4 little kittens, maybe this. They're 7 weeks old.
Oh, they're cute.
They're very cute. So in my complex at home, a cat just gravitated to me and then decided to give birth in my bathroom, and now I'm a foster mom. But it's very much welcomed energy. They're hilarious, but they're nuts. But they've all got home, so they'll be gone by next week. I'm really sad.
Did you want?
Robin, I don't know if you can hear me.
I can hear you, Kate. I can hear you, Kate.
I hope you're going to read in Amsterdam soon. And I
Yes, yes.
Wonderful reading. Thank you for it.
Well,
And beautifully read.
Hope to see you soon in Amsterdam, Kate.
Absolutely.
Lisa, I don't know, maybe we should stop the recording, otherwise it's going to be a long file, but maybe it doesn't matter too much.
Hi, Jacques. You want me
Sorry,
to?
I won't be able to do it because, oh, sorry, I'm not
Oh,
the,
okay.
okay.
All right. Okay. Okay.
I can stop the recording and then start it again.
We don't usually record the open mic.
Okay, so should I just stop the recording completely?
Yes, please.
Perfect, will do. No problem, Jacques.